Good evening, everyone. It is November 2nd, 2020. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Whitestown Redevelopment Commission meeting. Would like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is a roll call. So Nathan, if you wouldn't mind taking us away with that.
Yes, hang on. I need to unmute a couple members. Roll call. Brian Brackmeyer.
Present.
Kyle Weathers.
Present.
Adam Hess.
Yes.
He's on here.
See a box with his name on it.
He's here. Adam Hess. Come back to that one if he's available. April Wyckoff. April.
Here.
There she is. Rob Worrell.
Here.
Elizabeth Keith.
Here.
And Michael Berg.
Here. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance. I believe Glenn has a video he would like to share with the group.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you so much, Glenn. We did receive a public request to speak, so we'd like to go ahead and amend the agenda to add the ability for public comment. So would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to allow for public comment up next.
I will make a motion to allow public comment.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, Nathan, believe we need to vote by roll call, correct?
Yes. Brian Brackmeyer.
Yes.
Kyle Weathers.
Yes.
Adam Hess. April Wyckoff. Check April.
She's on mute.
Yeah, she's I'm trying to get her.
Yes.
And Rob Worrell.
Yes.
Motion carries. So Nathan, I believe you said you had a request for public comment.
Yes, I have a request. They've actually asked a question. They wanted to ask it after the TIF impact presentation as it relates to that topic. So let me find Cheryl Hancock. If you're ready to speak, you can ask now and they can.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, and this, it may get answered during the TIF presentation, but I just have a quick question, and maybe you guys can clarify it for me. My understanding is with the TIFs, the money has to be used inside that TIF area. Is that correct?
Steve, would you like to confirm?
Because I'll have a follow-up.
It really, Cheryl, the standard is that serving and benefiting. So it is not uncommon to use TIF dollars, for example, for a road project that serves and benefits a TIF area, but not the project is not actually within the TIF boundaries.
Okay, so that's why the Main Street and Pierce Street sidewalks, it just was kind of confusing how it was under the Maple Grove TIF area when they're not even connecting boundaries. So I just wanted to clarify. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Nathan, did we have any more public requests to speak?
No, I have no other requests to speak at this time.
All right, well, seeing nothing in the chat box, we'd like to go ahead and move along to presentations. So first item, we have a presentation from Reedy Financial. So we have Parker here to help lead us through the presentation. So thank you.
Get set up here. I'm going to share screen real fast. All right, can everyone see this okay? All right, perfect. So the presentation tonight, simply we're going to be going over and checking the box for the final reporting requirement that is owed by Whitestown's Redevelopment Commission. So jumping right in, we have a quick overview of the Redevelopment Commission. As was just asked, and Steve clarified, you have two different forms of areas. You have your economic development areas, and then that's your overall, that's where the plan exists, and then your allocation areas, such as your Maple Grove, where the money is collected. And then finally, your TIF, your tax increment financing, is the main source of revenue for the Redevelopment Commission. Why creating a TIF district in the beginning? As Whitestown is very versed with and very knowledgeable in the fact of using it as an incentive, you see it helps bring capital investments to the area, allows for redevelopment, promotes economic development, and then provides another conduit for debt issuances that allow for the city or the town to do larger forms of capital outlays. A brief overview of how TIF works. On the bottom there, you can see your green box. That's going to represent your base assessed value. That's what it was ever there before the TIF came into the area. That's the portion of the assessed value that still flows through to all the normal units or the underlying units like normal. Your light blue area there, that'll be the incremental assessed value that the TIF has helped to spur. That's what the Redevelopment Commission collects off of. And then finally, once the life of the TIF has been has existed and it expires, that orange portion out there will be a portion of the assessed value that's released to all of the underlying units. Again, like I've already mentioned, this presentation, the goal of it is to check off that final remaining reporting requirement owed to the DLGF. What this is basically going to cover tonight is going to be the Redevelopment Commission's 2020 budget, what we saw throughout the year, any long-term plans that the Redevelopment Commission has moving forward, and then finally we'll touch on the TIF impact that the Whitestown Redevelopment Commission has on each of the underlying units. Overview of the Whitestown Redevelopment Commission. Here we can see each of the allocation areas: Perry, Maple Grove, Anson South, Legacy Core, NDOT, Green Park, and Mauer Commons. Moving to the right, you'll see whenever the individual allocation area was enacted, and finally expected expiration date. So to start off, we'll start off with Perry Industrial Park. At the top, you can see the 2020 beginning cash balance of a little under 1.8 million, followed by the TIF revenue collections for this year of 2.5 million. Capital outlays for a traffic signal up in that area. The debt payments for the bond outstanding on the area, and then property taxes that were paid on parcels of land that are owned by the town. Moving downward, you see the surplus of the year of a little under $500,000, $457,121, and finally a projected 2020 ending cash balance of 2.2. Long-term plans for this area, your debt payments, various capital outlays as Whitestown continues to grow. Moving next, we'll have Maple Grove allocation area. 2020 beginning cash balance of a little over 1.3 million at the top. Following downwards, you'll see TIF revenue collections of $869,103. Your various capital outlays there. The Main Street Pier sidewalks, like we touched on earlier, the public safety lease payment, the Whitestown connector, and the transportation study that's associated with that. The two debt payments there, and then finally the professional services for the Redevelopment Commission are paid out of this fund. You'll see that there was a deficit this year, mainly coming from the Main Street and Pier sidewalks we're looking at doing, but then moving forward, we'll work on building that cash balance up and everything. So long-term plans, again, just the public safety, the radio equipment, that payment, any other various debt payments, and then again, some capital outlays as we move forward. Moving into Anson South allocation area, beginning cash balance of $710,000. Your revenues, this is associated with that. Those numbers are slightly lower. We had some corrections we made based off of revenue collections here and there. We're truing those up moving into 2021, so we won't have to worry about those anymore. Debt payments, the state number one that's outstanding for the area. And then finally, we've got a small deficit on the year of $94,000 associated with that correction with the town. Finally, a 2020 ending cash balance of $615,836. Long-term plans for Anson South, we've got the debt payments outstanding. Road improvement projects are going to be a big one for that area moving forward. And then again, just various other capital outlays. Moving into Legacy Core, the 2020 beginning cash balance of a little over $50,000. You'll see just an interfund transfer at the city or town level, and then we'll have TIF revenue collections this year of $67,000. Again, no capital outlays or other services and charges. Excuse me, and then debt payments of a little over the $43,523. Surplus, a little over $24,000. And finally, an ending cash balance for the year of $74,151. As with a lot of the other areas, debt payments and then other capital outlays, they pop up. Moving into the NDOT allocation area, I've not seen any incremental revenue as of 2020. I know moving into 2021, we will begin seeing increment, but just for sake of having it as being an area, beginning cash balance, revenues, no expenditures, and then again, $0 for the ending cash balance for 2020. Touching on Green Park allocation area, we've got the Park 130 bond proceeds sharing per that agreement, $75,000, the TIF revenue collections this year, and then we'll have the Park 130 bond payment that's structured as such, and then we'll have a surplus of $100,194 on the year, building that cash balance up to $100,194 at the end of the year. Finally, we'll jump on to Mauer Commons. As with NDOT, nothing as of 2020. Beginning cash balance, revenues, spending, and then ending cash balance, all of $0 for 2020. So moving into the meat of this presentation, a couple of years ago, Reedy Financial Group, we did countless hours basically doing a study on our own of seeing if there was a correlation between or if assessed values were better off within a redevelopment commission, or if they're better off being flown through to just the other units as it normally would be if there was no redevelopment commission. What we found was that there was a direct correlation between low circuit breaker and high circuit breaker environments and the amount of more revenues that are being generated in lower circuit breaker environments. So what this chart's going to show you here is it's got plotted all 92 counties across the state of Indiana. You can see Boone County there in the bottom left-hand corner. Nothing to worry about as far as circuit breaker goes. And these are all percentages of the counties. I believe it's overall levied taxes for the year versus the circuit breaker credits they received. So moving into the main portion of, or the main slide for this presentation, this will be the overall TIF impact for Whitestown's Redevelopment Commission. So what the big takeaway from this slide, and the easiest way to understand it, is the circuit breaker impact amount. That amount is what if the TIF or the Redevelopment Commission today was absolved and all the assessed values that the Redevelopment Commission has helped to grow and has incentivized and brought in this development and is built up, if we pass that through all to the underlying units and the Redevelopment Commission didn't exist anymore, those are the revenues that would be generated by each of those units in exchange for the revenues that are generated by the Redevelopment Commission now. So obviously Whitestown Civil Town has the majority of the impact at $771,110. That represents 48% of the total impact. Comparing that to the 2020 budget for the town, it's 4.41% of the budget. Moving downward, you have the Zionsville Community School Corporation at $604,000, representing 38% of the impact, but only equating to 0.62% of their overall budget for the 2020 year. Moving downwards, Boone County, $132,687. That's 8.4% of the impact, only 0.43% of their budget for the 2020 year. Lebanon Community School Corporation, $47,000, 329. It's 3% of the total impact, and then that is 0.11% of their 2020 budget. Next, we have the Hussey Mayfield Memorial Library, $23,872. It's 1.51% of the total impact, and that is 0.72% of their budget for 2020. Finally, we have Worth Township, $414. It's 0.03% of the total impact and 0.08% of their budget for this year. So this next middle section, this is where you can directly see that correlation and where the revenues are being held at within the Redevelopment Commission. You can clearly see that by the Redevelopment Commission existing, by the Redevelopment Commission pushing for outside investment within Whitestown, we are clearly creating a lot more revenues that the town is able to utilize as the town continues to grow. So again, so to summarize, the total impact to the overlapping units is a little under $1.6 million. However, Whitestown Redevelopment Commission in 2020 saw revenues of $4,768,189. What that equates to is that because of the TIF, we've seen new revenues of a little under $3.2 million. This slide is basically just going to reiterate what I just touched on, just in a little bit more word language there. The bottom is a list of just a brief list of items that Whitestown's Redevelopment Commission has helped spur and bring into the community. You see the future along the road, the Coca-Cola Distribution Center, the Anson South Development Area, and then the Little League Central Headquarters, and then finally Fishback Creek Industrial Park, and that doesn't include the Perry Industrial Park as well. So that wraps up the presentation. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Parker, thank you so much for presentation. We'll say on that last slide there about new projects coming to community, I think there's a lot of good stuff to add, especially when you talk about the new NDOT TIF allocation area as well too. So appreciate you as always. One thing I'm a little disappointed, I can't see your golf clubs in the background too. I was trying to see what was new in the bag this year.
They're hiding back there. I'm not sure. Yep, there they are.
Well, good deal. Well, does anyone have any questions for Parker while we have the chance?
You got a couple members muted, so I'm just giving them an opportunity to unmute in case they have questions.
Well, seeing none, I want to thank you for your time and look forward to continued updates in the future.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, next item on the agenda is another presentation from Millhouse Development.
I got booted out. Be just a second so I can get everybody unmuted here. There we go.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks to the commission. My name is Brad Volesmeyer. I am the Vice President of Development at Millhouse. We are a multifamily developer, contractor, owner, operator located here in Indianapolis, projects all across the country. Happy to present a potential project this evening, dovetailing off of Parker's presentation in the Mauer Commons EDA area, calling us the Little League multifamily project. For some context, for those that don't know, the proposed redevelopment project is just west of I-65 on Indianapolis Road, adjacent or just to the north of the now under construction Little League ball fields and headquarters. A little bit more detail about the proposed development that we're talking about. We are proposing to build a 240 unit Class A market rate multifamily community. This will be studio through 3-bedroom units, in addition to 5,000 to 10,000 square feet of retail on this 1 acre retail pad here just to the southern tip of the site. In the context of what we're trying to create in this community, also included a list of both unit and on-site finishes and amenities for residents. And again, just to put this in perspective, what we're talking about is roughly a $41.5 million investment just on the apartment side alone, broken between private equity and then also the balance being funded by construction loan. As we talk about this as well, this next slide, just wanting to put this again in context of the quality and I guess kind of sophistication of the project we're proposing here too. Kind of walking you through the images on the screen. So in the bottom right corner, this is a proposed aerial rendering of the project when fully built out. Again, with the Little League property adjacent, I-65 in the background, and then Indianapolis Road in the foreground. While this is not an exact rendering of this project, I think it speaks to kind of the context, the quality of the build, simplicity of both color palette, material. A few things to note: this is not a 4-story community that we're proposing. It's only 3 stories within the confines of the existing zoning designation. While this has open, unenclosed breezeways, we have a fully enclosed product as well. But from the images above, these are actually projects in our portfolio. Just to, again, to speak to the unit finish quality, amenity package. Probably won't find palm trees in Whitestown, unfortunately, but outside of that, again, just wanted to put these on screen to just kind of talk to what we hope is a sophistication and just really blends well within the existing context of a lot of development that's already in the area. Really just want to fit well into the context of both the Lily facility and then future redevelopment efforts in Mauer Commons and et cetera. So again, that's just to kind of set the table on the type of projects we're talking about. Specific to the TIF proposal, before getting into the kind of the mechanics and what is I think a fairly simple proposal, wanted to at least touch on the why and the benefits. On the why, it's not a conversation we take lightly, and it's nor something we seek after on every project we undertake. It's actually a very small portion, public financing is a pretty small portion of the projects we take a look at, and only look at using it as a tool when necessary. And there's a few conditions here that I just want to touch on. One being just the market. Obviously, Whitestown has seen a tremendous amount of growth, and it's really a reason why we're excited about the potential of this project to be about part of future growth in this district. Part of these existing challenges, you all might recognize it today. There's been a ton of development on the east side of I-65. This would be the largest and one of the first large-scale commercial developments on this side of the interstate. And while we feel like the momentum is very much headed in this direction, today, it puts us at a slight competitive disadvantage to some of our peers that are already within well-established commercial nodes. And so, again, that's a small component of the why as part of this presentation. A larger component is some of the abnormal site development costs we're facing here. This site is completely unimproved today, so there's nothing been developed here, just a field as it sits. And for us to develop this project, we'd actually have to raise the entire site up 4 to 5 feet before we could even start construction on our building pads. And for order of magnitude, that's a high 6 figures, low 6-figure cost value or cost impact of the project that we wouldn't otherwise be facing. Kind of pivot in our mind to the more important piece of this is really what we see as the benefits of this proposal. One being the furthering of the town's development vision for this district, both with the Little League facility and then eventually with Mauer Commons. And then dovetailing off the previous project, this site specifically has $0 in base assessed value today. So everything we'd be proposing is incremental assessed value, and conservatively assume that this project will, when fully built, will be assessed at about $29.5 million, which is significant, as you can see. And then I think the one unique component of what we're proposing, and we can get into the mechanics on the next slide, is of the bond issuance that we are asking for as part of this proposal. We're actually proposing taking 1.1 million of the total bond issuance amount and handing it back to Whitestown on day one. So not when the project's built, but day one, with the hope that those upfront proceeds could then, at least a portion of which, be reinvested for future district-wide improvements. So really kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of this, before I get into the calculation and some of the revenue, just wanted to kind of walk through a few of the assumptions. One, This is already part of the existing Mauer Commons EDA, and the site is already zone contemplated this project in multiple fashions, which we think is important. Two, we're talking about a $4.1 million bond issuance, gross TIF. We're proposing a 20-year bond term at an 80-20 capture split. Really important component. We're proposing this to be developer backed and bought, so the town would not be on the hook for any of the shortfall and debt service payments. I've already mentioned what we assume to be the base assessed value when this project is built. And so just walking through the math, $4.1 million gross bond issuance, netting out capitalized interest, cost of issuance, and then again, taking that $1.1 million and handing that back to the town on day one leaves us with a net proceed number of $2.3 million, which on the scale, it's only just over 5.5% of total project cost. So it's not largely substantive in our eyes. And then the other, but impactful nonetheless for us. And then on the revenue side, again, mentioned the $1.1 million to Whitestown up front. And then we also ran a preliminary residual tax calculation. And so that factors in the 20% capture split plus additional revenues that we believe will be available after we service the debt on the bonds. And that comes out to about $7.5 million over that 20-year term, or if you average that out, about $375,000 a year, which is $375,000 more than the property is currently generating today in taxable revenue. And so from a timeline perspective, the project as we see it would start construction, or bonds would be issued in March or April of 2021, delivering first units a little over a year after that, meaning the project would be fully assessed by the end of 2023. And with what is a pretty healthy debt service coverage ratio, we think these bonds will be fully paid off well within that 20-year term, or by 2041. So that's a lot of information. Again, appreciate the opportunity to present what we hope is a really great project and another key component to the further development of this district. And with that, open to any comments and certainly happy to answer any questions.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for your time and presentation. Love actually that slide right there where we talk about developer backed and bought bonds to help finance the project. You mentioned start date of April of 2021, but being able to have first unit delivery by April 22. Do you think is that in a perfect world, or what do you think about that timeline?
Given that we're the general contractor and can control our own destiny, so to speak, we think it's pretty reasonable if we're in the ground in March, April to have first units delivered in 12 to 13 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions for Brad?
Brad, what kind of
Brad.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is
Oh,
Rob.
go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry, this is Rob. What kind of price point are you looking for the apartments?
It's again a market rate price point, and so that'll largely be set once closer to when the project opens. But it's wholly consistent with a lot of the other product you see in the existing area. So even though it'll be a 10-year newer product, it'll compete with all the existing what I call Class A kind of apartment communities within the district. So from a nominal price point perspective on your studio units, probably anywhere from $800 up to $1,800 to $1,900 on the 3 beds.
Okay. What kind of retail tenants might you be going after for that space?
Yeah, I think it can take a wide range just because you're servicing both an existing bunch of existing single family home community. Obviously with the Little League facility adjacent to the south, there's a lot of service traffic and overlap that you would target either from a food and beverage perspective or just kind of true kind of service type retail for both apartments and single family home owners. Obviously with only a 1 acre parcel, you're talking smaller retail tenants, not big box or anything like that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So have you done a study on the potential impact of the school districts?
We have actually, and I didn't have that included in this presentation, but definitely happy to follow up, and I can at least anecdotally walk you through what we've, not anecdotally, like the math we've done here, and then happy to follow up after. So at 240 apartments, what we've seen after surveying a lot of the existing apartment properties in Zionsville, Whitestown, or within the Zionsville School District, your incidence rate of students per apartment is like 10 to 15%. So if you've got 240 units, we would expect to have between 24 to 36 students, school-age students at this property. And so backing into them the math with $29.5 million in full assessed value day one, that's full tax revenue projected at about $610,000. By comparison, again, it's not zoned for single family, but if you were to put a single family home community here at 4 units an acre, it'd be about 50 units. So at 1 kid per household, which we think is reasonable, you'd be about 50 to 55 students here versus the 24 to 36 with an apartment community. And with obviously a lower tax rate on a single family home versus a 2% tax cap on an apartment project, you're looking at a sizable increase between what the tax burden would be from a single family home versus an apartment community versus how many students you would have in an apartment community compared to a single family community. And again, we've done a whole bunch more detailed math too. Even with the TIF in place, we still think the residual tax income would be 2.5 to 3.5 times more revenue for school districts and with this apartment community than a non-TIFed single family community. But if the commission would like to see it, we'd be happy to send our analysis to everybody.
I'd love to see it, and so I represent the Zionsville School Corporation, and this is all Eagle Township, correct?
Yeah.
On that east side of the road.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, and it's obviously not something. I mean, so we have our own modeling that we've historically done that's really accurate looking backwards. So I may, if it's all right, if I could get your contact info, have our CFO reach out to you to kind of gather at least kind of what you're anticipating in terms of the plan. And we can sort of run it through our model also, if that's all right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I know it's kind of tricky to think about. One of the other, I guess, just to throw it out there, both of the elementary schools that are relatively close to this potential project are over capacity right now. And so we're obviously building another elementary school, but it's not going to be particularly close. And the redistricting anticipated for the new elementary school is going to be happening probably before this project would be completed. So we just kind of creates a bit of a complicated situation in terms of people potentially being redistricted more than once, and that's never a terribly popular thing. Just some things I want to throw out there for the commission to consider. But yeah, we'll be in touch, and if we could get your numbers, that'd be awesome. I appreciate it.
And so the board knows this is a presentation this month with intent to come back for approvals next month. But you have this time to, if you come up with any further questions, if you want to reach out to me with those questions or concerns, then we can work with the developer to get the answers to you. So just like Michael asked for the school reports, we can take care of that and get it back.
Thanks.
And Nathan, this might be a question that I'll shoot over to, but I want to throw it out to the group, is just thinking about, and thank you again, Brad, for the presentation. But what does the impact look like to Indianapolis Road and then subsequently to the 65 interchange that we have now? Because I know things are congested as they are, but think about putting a few hundred more people around it. And as that neighborhood starts to build out, does the town have any plans to do anything with Indianapolis Road, and what's that cost look like?
We do have plans for Indy Road. We haven't determined those costs yet. Currently it's wide enough, so we don't have big issue there. Everything we believe will fit within the footprint. But as we develop the entire rec center, when we started that design, it was looking at upwards of 1,100 multifamily units. So as we add those units in, we've looked at various entertainment venues, indoor rec centers. So depending on what the final product is as we go across the street, and that's why we're trying to maintain and capture a good portion of the TIF, and that's why with this, as you saw in his numbers, we're coming out with $7.5 million over the projected, and the 1.1 they agreed to pay the current assessed value for the land. Because if some of you recall back, we had a deal to where it was part of the Little League's ordeal with getting land and doing some things. There was a $1 value on land. They came back to pay full value to have access to equivalent to the excess of the TIF over the amount that was already secured. All in all, I think it'll be good. It gives as they said, the 375,000. Quick math, I believe if we ran that, we could go bond about $5 million or so to do road projects and widen Indy Road. And as the Reagan comes, as you knew with the other TIF we passed for the West, eventually that'll come, and 750 will be another outlet. 650 and 750 will become outlets to the Reagan when that comes. So that also diverts traffic different directions. So there's a lot bigger picture into play, but this will be a small piece into that. That's one of the reasons we have the big roundabout there now at Indy Road and 65. And with the midpoint coming, we expect a relief on the south end. So a lot of that's to be determined of creature of habit drivers, that getting them to shift from the 130 to the 132. But I can say that a lot of it's being looked at, and I know Danny Powers with our DPW has really looked at the streets and our future master planning with it.
Perfect. Thank you, Nathan.
Any other questions for Brad while we have him here? And if not, if anything comes up between now and the next meeting, please go ahead and coordinate with Nathan. He's happy to help coordinate with Brad and get everything that we need.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, well, moving on, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from October 5th, 2020. So has everyone had a chance to review those? Any questions, concerns, edits, revisions? If not, would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? If not, would entertain a vote by roll call to approve the meeting minutes from October 5th, 2020.
Brian Bragmeyer,
Yes.
Kyle Weathers,
Yes.
Adam Hess,
Yes.
April Wyckoff,
Yes.
and Rob Worrell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Seeing no unfinished business or new business, is there any other business that needs to come forth before the commission?
If I could give I'm on mute, yeah. Okay, quick update. As we have the EID and that route, I believe I've let some of the members know, the county messed up and didn't get the assessments on for the 2020 taxes for those warehouses. They've sent out an addendum to all the businesses to let them know to pay that dollar amount. But we won't see any revenue from that until November, December range. So we have meetings in the upcoming weeks with CERTA to find out where we're at financially. The RDC loaned $100,000 to get through the first half of the year with plan to pay back. But right now, looks like we're going to either have to come back to you or council somebody to get through the year, because the county didn't get it on the tax rolls. It should be, and it will be on there, but it just may be delayed. So we're trying to see what options we have in that, but I don't want to come back as any kind of surprise if we get in a bind on it and just have to figure it out. But the money's going to be there, but the county missed it this year when they put out the tax bills. They described it as somebody taking off time with COVID. So it's a tough year for everybody, and it just slipped through the cracks. So
that's not your fault, Nathan, but certainly disappointing. But curious with especially e-commerce going crazy with GNC and Amazon. Have you seen influx and ridership amongst the connector over the past couple months?
We're starting to see it pick back up. We recently got the numbers, and March, April, May were really low. It almost dropped off. And we think that was just a lot of people cautionary about COVID.
Right.
Reduced some of the route times because of it. But our numbers are actually coming in pretty good.
All right. Anyone else have anything else to come before the commission this evening? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We don't need a second. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.